You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.
And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group and co-hosts Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management, Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com, Andrew the Rock Lobster, Joe Benazzi from OptionPit.com, and Henry the Flowmaster Schwartz from Cboe. The Option Block is brought to you by Cboe. Cboe's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of Cboe Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively Cboe. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the Cboe products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody, that music means we are back. It is time to rock out with the Thursday edition of the Option Block. Did you miss us? Yeah, we were off for the Monday President's Day holiday, but now we are back, ready and raring to go. My name, of course, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Radio Network, your home for your favorite options podcast for now. Over 19 years. How wild is that? So coming up on the big 2-0 next year. And if you missed us, if you missed the Flowmaster also, then you should have been hanging out on the Pro on Tuesday because, man, we got up to some fun business on Tuesday. It was the hotly anticipated Val Deathmatch 2.0. Ever since we did 1.0 last year, everyone's been asking us, when are you going to do 2.0? And so we did it this Tuesday. It was the Flowmaster, Mr. Henry Schwartz, taking on Mr. Scott Nations with special guest referee Dr. Vix. A lot of shenanigans were had. There was some skullduggery afoot, some allegations of shady dealings on the part of the special guest referee. A lot of blood was shed. A lot of vol was talked. It was a wild time. You do owe it to yourself to check it out, listeners. There is literally no one else doing Val death matches. I can guarantee you that. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro is the place to go if you want to kick the tires and light the fires as we go around the horn and see who's joining us on the old OB today. First, he must have been away from his keyboard because the markets are turning red. So I don't know what he's up to. Let's find out. He is the uncleest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management. Uncle Mike, welcome back to the show. I see you've been distracted, sir.
You know what? Maybe I should just become a bear. I mean, this bullish stuff, I think maybe it's had its day. Should I become bearish?
You know, it might be. Maybe you can become an Indiana bear like the Chicago Bears apparently are doing. So a lot of fun to be had there. And joining us, I mentioned the Flowmaster. He took some body blows on the Val Deathmatch on Tuesday. So the man needs to recuperate. So in his place today, we have our good buddy, Mr. Kevin Nichols, the Senior Director of Derived Data and Market Analytics over there at Cboe. Mr. Kevin, welcome back to the show, sir.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm sure Henry will be back at full strength next time around. So I'm excited to be.
You step into that arena, you're going to leave a piece of you in there, sir, regardless of the outcome. So you need a little time to recuperate after that. So we'll give Henry a week. I'm sure he'll be back. In the meantime, let's get down to some business. It is time for the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, everybody. Let's get down to business. It is time for the trading block, the portion of the show where we break down what the heck is trading, what is lighting up our tapes out there today. And as Uncle Mike and I were chatting right before the show, it seems like we never really left because we're pretty much hanging out right back where we were on the show last week. The S&P off nearly 0.6%, but hanging out in that 68.40 level in the cash or so, which is not that dissimilar from where it was this time a week ago. The Dow off about 0.8%, NASDAQ off about 0.6%. VIX cash starting to get a little bit of juice. It was hanging out literally unstriped before showtime, right around 20.25. It has, as we've started the show, got a little bit frothier out there, up to about 20.75, which puts it up about 0.5 point, but it was literally unched right before the show started, which is always interesting. Maybe a sign that we're in for some interesting action on the show today. We got our old pal VVIX looking a little bit frothier as well. It's at about a 114, up 4 points out there. Of course, a lot of things out there spooking the markets. We have the potential impending conflict with Iran. We have a lot of other issues. More sellers than buyers. Pick your poison out there. But at the end of the day, we are tilting towards the red. But before we get into all that fun, let's go out now and welcome on our guest, Mr. Kevin. Kevin, sir, you're joining us on a bit of a red day, but an interesting one nonetheless. What is catching your eye out there and lighting up your tape today, sir?
Well, thing I've been looking at, I am not by nature a gold bug, but I started taking a look at Newmont, which has earnings after the close today. Was a little surprised at just how well it has been moving over the past 6 months, really over the past year. So kind of excited to see what happens with the earnings after the close today.
Yeah, I think we're all closet metals aficionados now. I was joking with someone else on the network the other day. I don't think we've talked metals this much on the network over the past 19 years as we have in the past, let's say 3 to 6 months. It's been just all metals all the time. I mean, usually Uncle Mike, I can't get him to shut up about silver, but now it seems like everybody else wants to talk silver and gold and all sorts of precious. We talked about it on the Futures Rundown yesterday. We talked about it last week on both TWIFO and the Futures Rundown. We've done deep dives into both gold and silver recently on the Futures Rundown. So I think we're all, at the end of the day, Kevin, we are all closet metals aficionados. Anything else catching your eye out there on the street today, sir? Could be in the broad market, could be valuations of all, whatever's catching your eye, sir.
Oh, you hit on it with VIX climbing above 20. I got to say that in general, looking for more movement out of the market, and with a suite of earnings coming up, should be interesting and active market for the next few days.
Definitely no shortage of things to keep our eyes on. Mr. Uncle Mike, you have been invoked not just as the resident perma bull, but also a resident metallurgist here on the show. We're all closet metallurgists now out there, sir. A lot of eyes glued to the metals. What is catching your eye on a red day in the street, a green day in vol, and yet another wild day in the metal, sir?
Seems like every day lately, at least the last week. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that because we've been kind of flat the last week, at least in stocks. But yeah, we're technically negative on the year right now again for the S&P 500 at 68.45. That's the close of 2025. So we are technically negative as I am speaking this at 68.44. So not very much, but we just went positive. We're negative. But nonetheless, it seems like the market doesn't really have a real direction it wants to be at right now. So just going to sit there. In terms of the metals, it's kind of the craziness for metals is that silver continues to hold on to the 70 level, just quoting SLV, by the way. So it's one to where we were up at 109 at one stage with SLV, came right back down to the 70 mark. And it seems like we've just 70's kind of been like its little magnet over the course of the last 3 weeks or so. I believe it was January 30th when it took that big hit from 109 to 70, and then just goes a little bit above 70, goes a little bit below 70, and just kind of sits there for the time being. So we have that. Yesterday, I know there was some news saying that certain inflation data to where it looks like the Fed might not lower rates the way with which they have promised to do so. And then that kind of made the markets not go higher, so to speak, later in the day. So we did have that. There's always talk with the Fed. And of course, as you mentioned earlier, with the potential conflict with Iran, there's always that happening as well. But no matter what way you slice it, we've had a massive bull run. And when you have massive bull runs over the courses of several years, there's going to be pullbacks. And when you're having a pullback, and when your pullback is to where you're just, well, okay, we just went positive. Now we're at 68.50 now in the SPX. When you have something like that and the pullback really isn't that catastrophic, it's really not a bad thing. So we have that. And if you want to sell some covered calls still at these levels, we got a VIX over 20 again. So there's some relative juice available out there. And yeah, we're just having a little bit of a pullback, and we're still positive.
How does it make you feel, sir, that literally everyone and their mother is now opining on the precious metals? You know, you've been a silver head for as long as I've known you, and now everyone and their mother wants to come on here and talk metals these days. The analogy I hear often, Mr. Uncle Mike, is, you know, let's say the bar aficionado, they call St. Patrick's Day amateur day because that's when everybody goes out to the bars. Is it amateur day right now? Is it amateur time in precious metals land, sir?
Gosh, I don't know. It might be opportunity time because it's kind of camping out again at the 70 level. And if you're looking for a pullback, if you're a huge silver bull, which I am not anymore, then you might have gotten your opportunity because we've held this 70 level for about 3 weeks now. So you do have that opportunity if you want to get back into it. I'm holding off until SLV gets back to the 30s. I'm not touching it with a 10-foot pole. So I guess you could also say I was silver before silver was cool.
You were silver. You were doing silver collars before anybody was talking about them, back when they were still boring. Remember those days?
Yes, the boring silver days.
You put a collar on silver now. You're a wild man. You're a crazy person. Some of that put juice, kind of astronomical out there. So you're not getting lured back to the dark side by some of these near triple-digit vol levels, Uncle Mike. Maybe a hit on some SLV puts in the 40 to 50 handle, not luring you back to the dark side?
I have looked. I'd be lying if I said I didn't look, but I have resisted the temptation thus far. So not going to get into silver anything above 40. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I knew you wouldn't be a human man if you didn't say you hadn't at least looked at the put premiums out there. They are wild, I think, to put it mildly out there, listeners. We've had a few questions of the week about all things silver. I have a feeling we might not be done. I have a feeling we might be talking about it again later today on TWIFO. We'll see. We'll see what's lighting up the tape out there in TWIFO. Speaking of which, lighting up our chat, I see a lot of you are concerned about the well-being of the Flowmaster. Don't worry, he's okay. But it was a wild affair on Tuesday. Anyone needs a day or two to recover after you step into the arena like that. Doesn't matter what the outcome was, you're gonna come away with some scars. So we should have the Flowmaster back hale and hearty on the show this time next week. Kevin, have you at least seen him around the office or on the Zoom? Do you have proof of life? Is he at least still alive, sir?
Oh, absolutely, sir. He's alive and kicking from his performance in the Wamageddon there. So
no spoilers. We'll edit that out for the podcast, folks.
So sorry.
The live folks already heard it, so they know the deal. He is, let's just say, nursing his wounds from a well-fought battle on Tuesday. Let's see if the markets are putting up a heck of a fight out there today or not. And again, it kind of depends where you're hanging your hat. If you're hanging your hat in VIX land right now, you're looking for maybe a little bit more action. You're looking to spice things up. Only 335,000 contracts on the tape right now. Now, you might be saying, That sounds pretty good back when the ADV was right around 700,000, and you would be right. But the ADV is now north of that barometer I often talk about on the show, listeners, that threshold of 1 million contracts. We are at 1.01 million contracts right now. So that, if nothing else, that should signal you to sit up and pay attention. The game is afoot. VIX is averaging 1 million contracts a day. Over that, you know things are happening. Even though today, not exactly lighting the world on fire, the hot option out there in VIX land today, 27, nearly 28,000 of the March 18 puts. You know, not a bad level, not a bad bit of duration. It's not going out next week or anything like that. You're getting some time. So maybe some folks are intrigued by those. 72 cents, if you're wondering, is what those are going up for today. Maybe we'll put out a little flash poll for our folks, see if they are down for a little bit of a nibble of those, or if they will go, our producers beat me to it. They already have done that. 72 cents. Right now, 100% of you in the early voting want to sell the heck out of those. Wow. You are not buying even, it used to be the hot put strike was the 15 puts. Apparently not even the 18 puts enough to draw your interest. Of course, 72 cents, maybe that's a little bit too much of an outlay for you out there right now, given we've seen a lot of puts go to die in VIX land lately. Either way, that's the early voting. We'll come back to it a little bit later in the show and see how folks are feeling about these March 18 puts. By the way, there is some OI on that strike, so could potentially be closing, but we shall find out. SPY putting up some numbers today, 6.5 million contracts already. The ADV, 10 million, so definitely seems like they're going to hit that today. The S, 2.65 million. The ADV, 4.6 million, so a little bit farther for the S to go to hit its ADV out there today. So even though we are red, that usually does gin up a decent amount of volume. For whatever reason, the S not exactly blowing the doors off yet. What is blowing the doors off, though, are the small caps. Small caps have been kind of the stealth story of the year so far, where a lot of people have been fixating on this, call it what you will, flight from tech, flight from AI, rotation. Either way, we have seen a lot of action leaving of the big tech names, leaving the big S&P, the large caps, rotating in to the small caps. And we are seeing some volume today. By the way, IWM off about 0.2% today. So hanging out pretty much right in line with the other major indices, which is kind of interesting. Usually it's outpacing them in one direction or the other. Putting up some numbers today, though. 1.4 million contracts already. That is a spicy start to the day. The ADV, 1.9 million. Kevin, a lot of people have been talking about this on the network of late, and certainly so far to start the year, this notion of the rotation out of large caps and into small caps. Is this something you're noticing over there at Cboe, and what are your thoughts, sir?
I think they've all had a great run. The large caps. I think ultimately, though, some of those names are still going to dominate long term. I was actually looking at Tesla earlier, giving back a lot, and still an interesting stock in the press. So I think it's just as Mike was talking about with silver up where it is. I think there's probably going to be a look for entry points if they give back a little bit more. Tesla's definitely off its highs. So I think as some of these large caps give back some of it, be looking for an opportunity. People will be looking for opportunities to step back in.
Certainly interesting. You're right. Tesla, a very interesting game. Now, one of the names that they have added the Monday and Wednesday weekly options on these days. So that certainly does change the game a little bit. Maybe we'll come back to Tesla a little bit when we talk about the most actives, listeners. Stay tuned, a little bit of a tease. In terms of what's lighting up the tape right now in small caps are interesting on the equity front because they're not quite the zero-day dominated platform that the other major indices are. And we're seeing that right now today. I'm looking at the top 20. It looks like only 10, so only half of the top 20 most active strikes in IWM right now are expiring today. And if you go out to the SPX, you go out to the Qs, you're going to see pretty much 20 for 20. So kind of interesting to see a little bit of a departure there in small caps, which again, that is the nature of the beast. The small caps like to march to the beat of their own drum. Speaking of the Qs, they are putting up 3.25 million contracts already. That ADV has continued to grow. It is up to 5.7 million contracts. We'll see if it hits that today. It's a pretty lofty level, but on pace certainly to hit it right now. By the way, let's be even, Steven. Let's run the same analysis for the Qs. Look at the top 20 most active. And as I said, Actually, I lied to you, listeners. We are not 20 for 20. We are 19 for 20, all expiring today. There is one contract that has the temerity to expire tomorrow in the top 20 of the Qs. It is the par put, the 600 put, expiring tomorrow, changing hands 46,000 times today for $2.61, if you are wondering. And that is effectively number 18. So number 18 of our top 20, the only one that is not expiring today as of right now. So again, pretty much every other major index product has been completely overrun by all things 0 day, with the exception of the small cap. So if you're not I know some of our listeners, we see it in the numbers out there. Some of you folks are still, let's say, dubious. If that's you, then perhaps small caps are where you should be hanging out. Let's hang out in some single name equities, shall we, listeners? Is it a wild day? Is it a banger day out there in these single name equities? The answer, surprisingly, is no. We're getting some red on the screen that usually can maybe lead to a little bit of action, or it could also be, if it gets too blood red, it could be a day where everyone's just macro focused and no one's really paying attention to the single names. It seems like we're hanging out in the latter territory right now. Only cost you $265 to break into the top 10 right now. That is wildly low. That's the lowest we've seen in quite some time, and we were almost 2x that. In fact, we were over 2x that not too long ago on the show. So kind of a sleepy start to the day in single name equities. Maybe the second half, if this red continues, maybe the second half will gin up some of those numbers. But right now, looking like the markets are having a hard time getting out of bed on the options front. 265 gets you to our old pal Intel. Intel, they've been up, they've been down, they've been up, they've been down. Today they are down 81 cents, or about 1.75%, trading 44.65 right now. Lest you be concerned for Intel, they're still up 5.25 or 13.3% just this year. If you go back to Q3, early Q4 of last year, they were hanging out around $20, so they're up over 100%. So they've had a good run, even if they are giving some back out there today. In Intel, number 10, listeners. Number 9, we're going out to Walmart. They had earnings before the bell. A lot of eyes were glued to them. Walmart, very much the bellwether for how the economy is looking, how the consumer is spending out there. And they had strong numbers, but also a cautious guidance going forward. That seemed to spook some folks. They took the stock all the way down to, looks like, about 125.85. It's pretty much still where we're hanging out right now. We're at the lows right now, 125.86. We've ticked up a penny. Still off about 0.75 bucks, or about 0.6% out there right now. That puts Walmart, though, still year to date. It's been a good start to the year. They're up a little over 13 bucks, or a little over 11%. So a good little run for Walmart out there, even if they are giving back some today. Walmart, number 9, 308,000 contracts on our countdown today. Number 8, another product that a lot of eyes are glued to these days. It's kind of the bellwether for what's happening in crypto. It's our old pal Strategy. Trading today 126.11 right now, up about, actually just ticking up a little more, trading 126.87, up about 1 2/3, about 1.3%. So gaining some back after what can charitably be called a bloodletting so far this year. It's off nearly 20%, over 30 handles so far year to date. Even if it has rebounded off its lows, right around earnings, right around 107. We had some fun trading MSTU strangles and IBIT and all sorts of fun going into that announcement. It was a wild time in earnings. Number 8, the monster, 314. Number 7, the fruit company, all the way down at number 7. Again, it's been a weird year for a lot of names, and you could put Apple in that category as well. Selling off 2 3/4 today, or about exactly 1%, closing, or to say trading right now, 261.62. A year to date, though, it's been wild. They've been up, they've been down, they've been up again, and right now they are down again, off 9 1/3 or 3.5%. So they've done a lot of living in the little over 6 weeks we've been live in this market so far. So a wild start to the year for the fruit company. Number 7, a 339. Number 6, another none you could say has had a wild start to the year. This is AMD, trading 201.65 right now, up about $1.50, or almost 0.5%. Year to date, though, they are off 22.70, or a little over 10%. So again, a wild year, and they were, of course, green before they were red again. So a wild start to the year for AMD. Number 6, 344. You got a lot of A tech names. And now let's take a break from those, and let's go to number 5. That's Palantir. usually if it's a day that ends in Y, Palantir is probably going to be somewhere in our top 10. Today it's number 5, selling off, looks like almost $2, trading right around 133.5. That puts it off about 1.4%, putting up 358,000 contracts. For the number 5 spot today, again, we're at number 5. We're only at 358 listeners. So again, shows you what a quiet day it is out there. By the way, if you're wondering, you know it's been a blood red year so far in Palantir. Unlike Apple or AMD, some of these others that had some fits and starts along the way, it's been pretty much all red all the time for Palantir so far this year, even if they have rebounded off their lows right around the 129, 130 level. But a wild start to the year for number 5, Palantir. Number 4, the Amazonians. Another A-Tech name, 204.25 is where they're hanging out, off $0.50 for about 0.25%, putting up 365,000 contracts. I guess the notion that Mr. Buffett and company have bailed on most of their share of Amazon, not really hurting the stock too much, even though that is, of course, all that stuff, a bit of a lagging indicator out there. But nonetheless, Amazon selling off a little bit today. They are off, though, year to date. After a strong start to the year as well, they rallied pretty well up to about 250. They're now off about 22 handles or almost 10% year to date. So a wild start to the year for Amazon as well. And again, talk about wild starts to the year. Microsoft, they've had a wild year already as well. And it's only been about 6 weeks. Selling off $0.50 right now, trading right around the 398 level or so. So below that par strike. Of course, you know, if you listen to the hot options report going into their earnings, a lot of people were piling into the pars. In the other direction, the 500s, those didn't work out too well. The stock's been pretty much in a tailspin ever since. Off now 75 handles, or almost 16% so far year to date, after getting all the way up to, again, nearly the 500 handle a couple of times this year. So a wild start to the year for Microsoft. Again, we're all the way at number 3. We're only at 435. This is a weirdly quiet day. If I just looked at these numbers apropos of nothing else, listeners, no context to them, I would think maybe we're hanging out in July or August or mid-December. That's the level of quiet we're seeing out there right now, which maybe the old adage applies. Maybe it's too quiet. As we keep going to number 2, listeners, it's NVIDIA. Yes, NVIDIA all the way down at number 2. You know, it's kind of a weird day when NVIDIA's at number 2. 186.5 is where it's hanging out, off about $1.40 or 0.75%, putting up 1.29 million contracts. So decent paper for NVIDIA so far today, but that's kind of it. And talk about a jump. We jumped from 400,000+ for Microsoft to 1.3 million for NVIDIA. So nearly a 900,000 contract jump. Kind of wild. And then the one Kevin was just talking about, our old pal Tesla, actually ruling the roost as of right now. 1.31 million contracts on the tape today. 409.70 off $1.62. So actually a somewhat net quiet day right now for Tesla, even though intraday they've had more of a range, almost an 11 handle range on the day out there today. So interesting stuff. Putting up 1.31 million contracts. We're flirting with the par strike. It'll be interesting to see if it's the par puts that light up the tape out there today, or if it's the, let's say, 420s, if people are feeling optimistic or if they're feeling pessimistic. Tell you what, we'll play the game right now. We'll give you an early glimpse at the hot options report after the bell. Right now, the hot option in Tesla, listeners, nearly 60,000. 59,000 of, I was wrong, it's the 415, so they're splitting the uprights. They're not going to the 410s or the pars or the 420s, they're going to the 415s 59,000 times. 410s, a close second though. 410 puts, 58,000 of those bad boys. The par puts trading 55,000 times. So they're pretty close, they're in the running. But interesting stuff out there. We'll keep an eye on this, come back to it after the closing bell. See how these names are faring out there, listeners. Speaking of how things are faring, let's get out to earnings season. Again, it's a truncated holiday trading week, so not a ton of names popping off. But we did have some big ones. I talked about Walmart before the bell today. They're obviously a big bellwether. We had DoorDash and Carvana and eBay yesterday. Kind of interesting. Different slice of the economy there. And then Texas Roadhouse popping off today. I'm not sure. I'll have to go check and see if they are after the bell or before the bell. They are after the bell today. This has been a wild one. We haven't talked about them in a while here on the network. I talked about them, kind of discovering them accidentally a few years ago and wishing I not only bought the stock, but bought a franchise. These places just seem to print money and are always filled and always have a line out the door whenever you look at them. It's the old Peter Lynch test. Go sit in the parking lot and see how busy the store is. And if you did that, Texas Roadhouse certainly beating on all metrics. Trading 184.18 right now, off 268. They're up 7.5% just year to date. If you go back to a year ago, though, I'm going to say this level sounds familiar, and they're hanging out pretty close to where they were a year ago, up a little over 5%. So they were hanging out close to this 180 handle. I think the last time we checked in with them, they got as high last year as almost exactly 200, 199.80 back in May of last year. And they threatened that level again on January 20th, 195. But they've kind of been, looks like, locked in this range of about 200 to about, looks like right around 150, 155 on the downside. So interesting stuff hanging out 184.20. They do have earnings after the bell today. Well, luckily for you folks, because we like you, we have updated hot off the presses earnings move results and earnings season reports to talk about here. You can find them all on the website if you are so inclined, theoptionsinsider.com. Texas Roadhouse today after the bell, they were at 186.87 when we ran this report earlier this morning. So obviously a couple of bucks north of where they're trading right now. They were pricing in $10.32. So not an insignificant amount of juice, especially when you consider that they moved on average their last 12 quarters right around $7, a little bit less than that, $6.96. They're pricing in potentially a spicy earnings trade. Obviously input's going to be an issue for them. The cost of beef has been skyrocketing, so that'll be an interesting one. Maybe that's what folks are pricing in terms of juice. But either way, if you've been eyeballing this name, maybe there are some interesting puts to nibble on for you going into the announcement. But Texas Roadhouse, an interesting one. And again, not one we get a chance to talk about too often out here on the network. Let's look really quickly. We had some names popping off. These popped off yesterday after the bell. Carvana was at 361.5 going into their announcement. They popped off after the bell. They were pricing in 15%. They were pricing in a heck of a move, which again, given the history of this stock, you can't really blame them. At the time of this report, they had only moved 5.6%, so to the downside. So they were underperforming. They have since caught up. They have sold off now about 11.5%, or about 41 handles. So still underperforming their straddle, but looking a little bit better if you were buying some juice out there. eBay, a stock we haven't talked about in forever here on the network. They were popping off yesterday after the bell as well. They were at 82.18 going into their announcement. They were pricing in 8%, so they're pricing in a fair amount of juice as well. Actually, I probably take that back. They were pricing in 2.5%. In the past, they've moved 8%. So they were going the other way. They were taking a lot of layers off that onion, not pricing in a heck of a lot of juice. And it seems like so far they have outperformed that lower vol level. They are up 370 right now, or 4.5%. So very interesting. We already talked Walmart's. They were at 126.62 going into their announcement this morning. They were pricing in 5.5%. As of our report time earlier this morning, they had only moved 1.7%. They have now moved 0.4%. So looks like selling juice was the right way to go, at least for right now in Walmart, which again, kind of wild. Let's do DoorDash really quickly as well. They were after the bell yesterday. They're at 173.38 going into their announcement. They were pricing in 11.5%. So they weren't messing around either. They were pricing in a heck of a lot of juice. And let's see, as of right now, they're trading 178.71, up a little over 3%, or 5 handles. So it looks like they are underperforming their massive amount of juice as well. Again, if you want to crunch all these numbers for yourselves, you know where to go. TheOptionsInsider.com. Click on the Options News and Articles tab. You can find all this cool data, including the earnings season report, hanging out right now at 137%. We were at some ridiculous, that's already a ridiculous number. We were at an even more ridiculous number last week. This week looks like some names are clipping that, so that's bringing that total back down to earth a little bit. We're at 77% so far for this week, so that's the first red week we've seen so far for this season. Will that continue? Still got some big names popping off. We shall see. By the way, our long-term average hanging out at 102%. But now is the time you've all been waiting for. It's the time to make Kevin sweat, because it is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, Mr. Kevin, we turn the spotlight upon you now, sir. This is usually the portion of the show where the Flow Master holds court with some particular unusual activity or trades that caught his eye. Anything catching your eye out there today or this week, sir?
Give me 1 sec here. Let me dive into my my Live All Pro here. Take a look, quick, some unusual activity for you for sure. Well, I'll just hit largest trade in Newmont before earnings. Going to that is looks like purchase of at money calls March 26th. So we've got that standing out among all the other trades today in Newmont. So that's the single largest one that jumps out for sure. So keep that in mind going into earnings. Just quickly on that. Markets pricing in, I think you have it a little under 5% move, which is below its long-term average. But given its run-up, could be an interesting announcement. Take a quick look at a couple other things here.
Tell you what, while you pull a few up, I will throw a few out there for us as well to sink our teeth into, including let's pay off some interesting trades that our buddy the Flow Master highlighted out there as well. Let's go out to the February 18th show, listeners, all the way back February 18th of last year. Who can remember so far back? We were also so young and innocent back then. And he highlighted a newcomer to the network. This is Leslie's Inc. Ticker symbol Lesl, L-E-S-L. Turns out they are a manufacturer of swimming pool supplies. And apparently, swimming pool supply market, no bueno, listeners. This name, I think the technical term is annihilated blood red. Call it what you will. They are off nearly $30 or 97% from where they were trading a year ago when they were $30.80. So some poor person bought Lesl back last year, exactly a year ago, and it was north of $30. And unfortunately, they've had a rough year. So when you're feeling bad about a trade you made, listeners, just say, hey, I didn't buy Lesl at $31 and ride it to oblivion. And let's look right now and see what did our buddy the Flow Master highlight back on December 18th. So we're talking, obviously a few months back. The stock was hanging out right around $2 at the time, so it had been annihilated, but wasn't quite gone yet. And Henry came in and he spotted a whole bunch of the Jan 2.5 calls going up on a big sweep. Somebody really had to get these things. Again, with the stock hanging out right around $2, they came in, they got a market of a dime at 25 cents. They said, I will pay 20 cents, good sir. 1,339 times. They came back, bought 100 more for 20 cents. So you're talking a total of around 1,500 of these things. Again, for a name like Lesl, that is huge. That is enormous volume. They did 14 different trades on 9 exchanges in a sweep just to get it all done. And unfortunately, you could probably guess by my tone that this one was not exactly a banger. The stock, I don't think they ever had an opportunity to get out. And the stock ended up going out on Jan expiration at $1.64, which by my math is below the 2.5 strike. So unfortunately, these were all still open, Kevin. So it looks like they dropped a cool 25 grand on a somewhat surprising swing for the upside fences in everyone's favorite pool manufacturer, Leslie's. Kevin, your thoughts on the Flow Master's paper in this apparently doomed pool supply manufacturer?
Oh dear. Well, I don't make a lot of money betting against Henry Schwartz, so I like him. I think his odds are pretty good. I was going to say something that caught my eye. following earnings was Figma. I don't know if you saw this. A lot of activity following earnings. Not surprising, of course, but largest trade in there was buying the Feb 22.5 puts. So maybe a little post-earnings concern there. I'm going to say one other one that I personally can't get away from Tesla. It's an interesting stock to me. I'm ready for the robot revolution, if you will. But the largest trade out there was the Feb 27th, 425, 442 call spread trading on the ask. So somebody's not giving up on that revolution.
Yeah, a couple of interesting names you just highlighted there. Figma, we have not really discussed before on the network. Ticker symbol FIG, listeners, FIG. Trading $26.12 right now, up about $2 or nearly 8%. They had a nice little earnings, or I should say post-earnings pop. They're in the AI game. They see AI monetization accelerating, so that's a good thing if people are actually making money on AI as opposed to spending gobs of money on AI. Interestingly enough, though, if you look at this chart is not that dissimilar from the one we were just talking about, the Leslie Pool Supplies. It's a bit of a blood red stock. You could have 1 year ago, listeners, bought this stock for the privileged price of $122 before it pretty much, that actually was July of last year. So this has been just an absolute value erosion, it seems like, ever since. But if you want the glass half full, they have popped over the last week or so about 15%. So maybe the bottom is in. They hit a 52-week low of $18.41. Does seem like some of the flow might be backing that up, Kevin, because looking today in FIG, the hot option out there, we have nearly 19,000 of the 25 calls, a now in-the-money call. These traded earlier in the day for 85 cents, so it looks like they're looking pretty good if they bought these. If they sold them, then maybe they're sweating a little bit out there right now. So, Kevin, a little bit of a near-term upside in your beloved FIG, sir. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's value priced, at least compared to where it came out of the gate, right? It's an interesting product. We've actually used it on some of our platforms. So it may not be doing well in the stock market, but as far as uptake, it seems like it's a quality product. So,
yeah, if you're not familiar with that, listeners, they were going to get bought by Adobe. That ended up falling apart. So they went public back in July 31st of last year. They went public. They were priced at $33. It's one of these last year blockbuster AI-related IPOs, surged well over $100. Obviously, as I was just talking about it, they were far beyond that level. And then, of course, since then have pretty much just completely fallen out of bed. I do kind of wonder if in hindsight this will look like the Peloton. They had a chance to be acquired several times. It fell through or they didn't take it, and now the stock kind of suffering as a result. I wonder if FIG will lament that lack of an acquisition. It looks like it's going to be a $20 billion acquisition by Adobe. So I'll have to look at their market cap. I don't think they're worth $20 billion right now. So kind of interesting stuff. Speaking of interesting stuff, you mentioned Tesla out here today. Kevin, Tesla is always one that is kind of on our radar. Obviously, it's usually number one or number two pretty much every day on our docket out there. Today, like we said, selling off about $1, hanging out at the 410 level. As I mentioned earlier, we've got the 415s lighting up the tape out there today. There are obviously no 0-day options that expire today, at least not yet. No Thursday expiration. So everyone's playing on the Friday expirations, and it's the 415s to the upside. So as Kevin mentioned, maybe some hope is springing eternal out there in Tesla. We have seen a lot of action between the 400 and 500 strike lately. A lot of that to the downside, unfortunately, for Tesla bulls. So interesting stuff. These went up for an average price of about $3 if you are intrigued, listener. Speaking of you folks out there, let's get to some of you now. A little bit of the old Thursday mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the mail block.
All right, let's get out to the mail block, see what you folks have on the brain. Let's check in really quickly with our flash poll that went live at the start of the show. We said, hey, March 18 puts trading 22,000 times for around 72 cents in VIX. What do you folks think? Buyer or seller? I was kind of surprised that 100% of the early voting was all wanted to blast away at that 72 cents. As the show has progressed, we have seen more buyers sneaking in there. So now 55.6% of you want to buy those bad boys. 44.4% want to sell them. So kind of interesting. Which way would you go, listeners? Get over there at options and make your voice heard. Uncle Mike, you are the subject of discussion in our pro chat out there today. A lot of folks interested in your comment that you want to get back in on silver and SLV below the 40 handle. Several folks, including Mr. Unlimited in our chat, saying if he's waiting for the 30 handle, I don't think it's ever going back there again. He may never have silver again. Uncle Mike, what do you say to those comments, sir?
Then I'd be fine with it. We had our run. I promised clients it would come like a thief in the night for over 10 years. It had its run. It came like a thief in the night. We were hedged. It wasn't as exciting as if we just owned it. But in terms of if you compare that to bond performance over that time frame, it worked out pretty well. So if I don't get back into it, I don't get back into it. But I would nibble in the high 30s.
I don't know who this person is who's speaking to me anymore. You're talking about rotating out of large caps. You're talking about never potentially owning silver again. Who are you, sir? What have you done with Uncle Mike?
I mean, you know it's going to be complete. You know that someone will have demon possessed me or something if I start saying that I'm going to be bearish on the market. I'm still bullish on Uncle Mike.
You did start the show hinting you might go bearish, so I don't know. The dark side of the force is strong with you today, sir. So interesting stuff. I don't know. We'll see if you get lured back. Kevin, obviously the metals have been the subject of fascination for just about everybody. I have to admit, I was eyeing that put chain in SLV myself last week, 2 weeks ago, looking at some of these astronomical levels out there. I didn't quite get lured to the dark side, but like Uncle Mike, I was certainly tempted. I got close to the water. I did not drink. You guys look at all the flow over there at Cboe Analytics. Have you seen a lot more interest and uptake in products like an SLV and a GLV with maybe some options constituents that you don't normally see playing in those, sir?
Well, I think you can't ignore the performance, just like Uncle Mike was talking about. So you gotta take a look. You have to take a look at these products. Ultimately, I tend to use options as an entry point. So if Mike's saying below 40 in SLV, I might be looking at puts there. I think that's sell some puts for a good entry. That's pretty standard and fair. Other than that, the miners are an interesting play. Newmont should show some direction for the rest of the industry there. That's really my take. If the product's good, the miners should be an interesting play.
Let's look here really quickly what else you folks had to say. Last week, we asked you another one that's in your wheelhouse, Kevin. Everyone's all hot and bothered with these new single name 0 DTE options listing on Monday and Wednesday. We asked you folks last week in our audience, are you trading these new single name 0-day options on your Teslas and NVIDIAs and everything else? And nearly half of you, 43.8%, said you're just straight up not interested. That is wild. I know some of our audience, we have a lot of pros out there, some cynics, some folks who are skeptical when some new products come along. So I certainly can see that. But that is a pretty surprising percentage. 31.3% saying no, but you are curious. You're waiting and seeing. So if you add those two together, you're talking nearly 75% of the audience right now saying no, they're not trading these things. And about 25% saying yes, they are already trading them. So kind of wild stuff. Kevin, obviously you look at a lot of the flow intraday. Henry's been on here saying that they're already accounting for roughly 3 million contracts a day. So folks are clearly trading them. It's interesting, though. Our audience, at least for right now, staying hands off, sir.
Well, it takes time to build that base. If you looked at the volume in SPX when we first had the weeklies Monday and Wednesday, it really took off after we got Tuesday, Thursday. So it takes time to build a base. Before next thing you know, it'll be an overnight success, right? I think there's definitely interest. Like you said, 75% aren't trading, but 25 are. It's an interesting area for us, and I think we would expect to see continued growth and continued interest in these daily options.
All right, let's see what we're seeing in the markets and what we're keeping an eye on, listeners. It is time to go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, let's see what we're keeping an eye on. Let's also see how the markets are shaping up at the end of the show here. And it seems like we're mostly still firmly in the red. Sell-off mitigating maybe a little bit. The S&P off close to 0.5%, a little bit less than that. NASDAQ off about 0.5%. Dow off over 0.2%. So interestingly, intensifying a little bit in the Dow. And VIX cash getting a little bit firmer at about a 21 as we're ending the show. So kind of interesting stuff out there. Be very interesting to see where we end the day out there. But before we go, let's go around the horn. Let's start with you, Mr. Uncle Mike, sir. What are you keeping an eye on for the rest of the week until our Monday show?
Well, I'm actually looking now. So you got me thinking about these silver puts. So I'm just looking at them right now. You can go 1 month out. The March monthlies, the 39 puts on SLV, they're trading at 8 cents by 11 cents. So they're actually, even though that's not near enough juice for me to even think about it, the fact that there actually is a bid on those 39s 1 month out, I kind of got to keep an eye on them. That's one thing.
That's a free 8 cents. How can you not take it, sir?
And if not, I could get paid 8 cents to get into SLV.
It's a win-win. Either you're back in SLV at your 40 level or you keep 8 cents. How can you lose, sir?
I know, but I think I'm going to pass on that one. But maybe at some point I'll get into something like that to get the show more content, if you will. But we are up 8 points since the open of the show. So we did have the option block rally. So that's a good thing. Watching that, I think the main thing that everybody's watching right now is the crazy thing. If to happen, so definitely be keeping an eye on that, and just make sure you're prepared for that.
All right, Mr. Kevin, same question for you, sir. What are you keeping an eye on for the rest of this week until Henry takes your spot next week on the show, sir?
Well, first off, I just say, Mike, make sure you size appropriately on those downside prices.
1,000 or bust.
There you go.
I'll leverage myself a lot so I can make more money. That's what you should do, right?
That's your neck of the woods.
It's not my neck of the woods. So
here we go. You know what? I have to say I'm going to focus on Tesla right now. It's sitting between its 50-day, 200-day moving average. See if it's going to get squeezed there. I am going to be I'm on the sidelines, but very interested to see how those Newmont earnings play out. So that's what I'll be watching into the end of the week.
And that music means we have come to the end of our sojourn through the world of the option block. An interesting one, a fun time was had by all. Hopefully you had a good time listening, listeners. If you want more of a good time, don't worry, I'll be back in a little bit talking all things futures options. So that should be a good time. We'll probably talk a little bit of equity options, maybe some silver. Who knows what else is going to make it onto the show? Will it be crypto? Will it be nat gas? Will it be soybeans? Will it be something else entirely? Who knows? Got to tune into TWIFO to find out. I don't even know yet. Listen, I haven't looked at all the numbers yet, so it's a mystery to me as well. And of course, we're back after the closing bell to crunch all the data on the hot options report. But before we do that, let's go around the horn. Mr. Kevin, you did an able job filling in for our buddy, the Flowmaster. Those are big shoes to fill, sir. In the meantime, if folks want to check out what you and the crew over there in Cboe have cooking, where should they go? What should they do?
We got a lot of good things to offer. If you like data like I do, check out datashop.cboe.com. If you want to dive into some of the analytics that the wizard, if you will, Henry Schwartz, is able to pull up at the click of a button, check out our Trade Alert offering. and then LiveVol Pro as well. LiveVol is a theoretical price provider for the industry. So great offering in our LiveVol Pro platform.
There, check it out. LiveVol Pro, Cboe.com/RMA. All sorts of places you can go to kick the tires and light the fires. Mr. Uncle Mike, where should they go if they want more Uncle Mike goodness in their lives?
Well, keep tuned into YouTube. On my YouTube channel, just type in St. Charles Wealth Management. Trying to put out a lot of content there, as well as if you are looking for a financial advisor who will not short silver puts at the 39 level at this point anyway, go to stcharleswealth.com. Would love to have a conversation with any of our listeners.
Check them out. stcharleswealth.com is the place to go. We got to get on out of here. Back again in a little bit for This Week in Futures Options, and back again with Thor, then back tomorrow. If you didn't have enough Vol on the Val Deathmatch, I'll be back with our special guest referee and perhaps some other special guests to talk all things Vol on Volatility Views. Back for our pro friends, talking some unusual activity after that on Options Oddities. And then we're back again on Monday, another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
The Option Block is brought to you by Cboe. Cboe's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of Cboe Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively Cboe. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the Cboe products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.